Let's get into it's just what am I doing? What am I doing here? Those are solid though. Those were solid though, and I won't hear anything to the contrary. Okay, I know they were solid. I heard them. Let's get into it. Coach Colin here. You guys know what's going on. You saw the title. This is very odd. What's going on? Yep. First of all, two things that are odd. This lady Elizabeth Lane, who is going to be talking, she basically tried to get Tyler Robinson a lawyer. Now, the fact that she wanted to do that makes absolutely no sense. She's an investigator. She's an online person. She followed me like years ago, and she's like a model, but then also a journalist. And she looks like a Bond girl. Like, look at this chick. You see what I mean? Like, she looks like a Bond lady, you know? She's clearly not from America. Can't really tell where she's from. She has an accent. You know, it's like, is she like a honeypot or something? I don't know. I really don't know. But apparently she wanted to get Tyler Robinson a lawyer, and she was met with the oddest amount of resistance from Utah and from his parents. So we're going to listen to that, and then we're going to get into who his actual lawyer is. And yeah, just listen to this. Check it out.
Three-letter agency, Dots and Connections, and she joins us now. Elizabeth, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Clayton. Oh, yes. And it's funny you guys mentioned Gladio because it's so important to know what happened during Operation Gladio. Because what we are seeing in the United States right now, it's very related to what the CIA Institute actually turned this world to be. So I'll get to Charlie in a second because I was actually at the hospital where the whole thing happened. My producer called me that he got shot. So the first thing I did was get in a car and drive to the hospital. I knew exactly where they were taking him. Like I've done my investigation. I did my investigation while I was on the road, and I was texting a person who was getting live updates from the hospital. So I showed up and the whole scene was just really weird to me. First and foremost, there were very little amount of journalists that really shocked me. Like I thought people would be there just trying to get some details and story, but that was not the case. There were just some people who followed Charlie's car and they were just praying at the hospital, for Charlie's survival, but obviously he was already dead. Then another weird thing that happened was this whole story about him being on some kind of life support. They even told us that for a second, he had a pulse. All that obviously is not true. Charlie was dead from the as soon as he got shot, I would say. And another thing is, I had this strategy that I wanted to maybe try out. I have a private detective that I work with from New York. He's very experienced. He was there during mafia days in New York, so he knows what he's doing. And we got together as a team. I had this strategy. Now I can talk about this because it didn't work out quite how we wanted it to. I looked at Tyler Robinson's case and I thought, well, why don't I get this guy a lawyer? Because that at least puts me near him so I can understand and control the process. And this is times where they couldn't find the guy a lawyer and they were kind of scrambling around to figure out who was going to be his lawyer.
So this lady wanted to control the process. Isn't that an odd thing to say? Guys, this is a serious message. As you can see, I'm not even in uniform. I'm not wearing the signature hat. So, very serious message. 59% of you are not subscribed. Please, guys, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 500,000 subscribers. The road is long, but I know that we can do it. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notifications. Please hit the like. If you want to keep seeing this content, if you want to help me move from being the Joe Rogan clip guy onto better, greener pastures, you got to hit the like. You got to hit the subscribe. It helps me tremendously. That is all I ask. Let's get back to the episode. She was looking to control the process. She's just a reporter. That's it. She has a YouTube channel. She does interviews. Also, very little subscribers, gets interviews with just Dan Crenshaw, Tucker Carlson, all these big personalities. And then when she does the interview, it's like 1,000 views. And I'm like, what? Like, none of it makes sense. It's so weird. It's so weird. But she wanted to control the situation. So what we're getting is somebody who's not American, clearly from, where is she from? Where is she from? Hold on. Let me just see this really quick. Elizabeth I mean, this is not like I'm not going after her or something, but it's just Elizabeth Lane. Where is she from? Then we'll see if that place is connected to Philadelphia. Straight up. Let's see. Elizabeth, who is she? Where is she from? Okay. Anti-Western statements disseminated on. So she's an American actress of Georgian origin. Huh. She's from Georgia. Georgian origin. She's a TV anchor. She's not even like a full out reporter. She's a TV anchor. Part of pro-Kremlin TV outlet IRE. So that's what she was a part of. Elizabeth Lane and fragments of the program were actively. So yeah, let me just see something. I gotta see if there's our Georgia. Is that what it's called? Georgia and Philadelphia, but that's not what I'm typing. Connected in any way. I gotta check this out because this is just yes. Georgia and Philadelphia are connected through diplomatic, commercial, and cultural and military ties. Diplomatic relations were formally established June 1st, 1992. Both countries maintain embassies in each other's capital. Georgia has an embassy in Kensington, we'll say, and a consulate in another place in Philadelphia. While Philadelphia has an embassy in Tbilisi. Okay. The relationship is strengthened by historical and cultural links, particularly through Georgian Philadelphian community. People who don't know about the Philadelphia thing, they're like, what the hell is he talking about? There's a place in the Middle East. We don't talk about it. We can't talk about it. And I just call it Philadelphia, okay? So that's what I'm doing here. Just trying to survive. There are approximately 120,000 Georgian Philadelphians living in Philadelphia and around 13,000 Georgians with historical ties dating back centuries. That's very... BB has a reference shared history, noting that Georgian people have historically served as a human bridge between the two nations. So they actually have a really good relationship. That is just completely didn't even plan to bring that up in the episode, but I've always wondered, like, what is this lady? Like, who is she? Because again, when I see somebody, I know how it works when you're building up in YouTube land, in social media land. I know how it works. I'm doing it right now. And when you see somebody where you'd think a Tucker Carlson interview, that's going to get you big subscribers, big views, but it did nothing. All of her big interviews do nothing. It's so odd. Anyway, she does particularly have links to Philadelphia. Just saying. And she wanted to control the situation. So let's jump over here.
And I started approaching different firms in Utah, trying to get him a lawyer for pro bono. So I walked up to one, I'm not going to name the firm itself, but one of the most reputable firms in Utah, because I live here. And I asked them if they were willing to represent Tyler Robinson for pro bono, case. And I was extremely surprised what I got from them. First and foremost, they were like, yes, we're absolutely on this, because we don't believe that what happened to Charlie Kirk was remotely a case of just a single, crazy kid going up and shooting the guy in the neck. Like, we don't believe that, so we are more than willing to represent him pro bono. So I was like, great. So we started the process, and what happened is we realized that we needed lawyers who are actually certified with death penalty. So their certifications didn't live up to that. But there's another interesting thing. When I did find a lawyer that was certified to represent Tyler Robinson, obviously I needed a consent from Robinson's family or Robinson himself, because he's actually not a minor. He can consent himself. And ironically, we were unable to get in touch with the parents, and the only sources that got close to the parents, they kept telling us that they don't need a pro bono lawyer. In fact, they don't care if we have a better lawyer for Tyler Robinson. And that really shocked me, because I don't know, if my son was, on a trial and possibly charged with, a murder that could get him executed in prison, I would probably want a really good lawyer for my son, as a family member.
Right.
So
It's very, very weird that that's the reaction she got from the parents, that they don't care if you have a better lawyer. But then you have to think, what are we saying when we say that? It is weird. Nobody can doubt that. Like, why would you say, whatever, public defender, who cares? You're that mad at your son? Maybe you're that angry at your son. But then you put on your tinfoil Speedo and it's like, are they in on it? Is that the type of thing that we're seeing right now? Like, how deep does the rabbit hole go in Utah? Right? Apparently that LDS church is a known recruitment place for the agency and agencies in general. That's a known recruiting place. That's where George Zinn was a member. He was a member of that church, and he has all sorts of weird ties to all sorts of weird government things. So it's very interesting to think, like, is that how far we're going, to say that the parents are involved, or the parents are making sure that some random lady can't offer up a good lawyer, a very good vetted lawyer who's going to work pro bono to make sure that their son doesn't, pass away. I mean, what other conclusion can you come to? Why else would you do that? Someone in the comments, give me a different reasoning as to why they would do that. I can't think of a single thing that makes sense to why they would say, no, we don't care if you have a lawyer. We'll just let him just hang out to dry, see what he comes up with. I don't know. How could you be that mad at your kid?
that was a very big
Wait,
surprise.
Can you clarify
Yes.
something? The family was telling you this, his parents, or an
No,
intermediary?
we couldn't even get to the family, Clayton. That's another strange thing that we can discuss. Like, I couldn't even get to them. So then my best approach in this situation, as my detective told me, to reach out to local firm in Utah and get their help to somehow get the consent, because as a lawyer, you can't solicit clients, right? So it's illegal. So you can't just announce yourself that I'm going to represent Tyler Robinson. So I started doing that. So I got into this process and I asked my local lawyer firm, hey, what's the best way to go around here? Like, we need help to get the lawyer from New York who is certified to represent Tyler to get on the case. So he said, whatever you do, Elizabeth, do not get in touch with the firms in Utah that are the most powerful, because they are in on it with the state. No matter what happens, they will take the side of the state. I did not listen to him. And I ended up calling one of the biggest firms in Utah just to ask for an advice. Like, what is the situation here? What can we do? So what I got from there, Clayton and Natalie, will shock you. First and foremost, they started screaming on the phone. And I was like, why do you even care? Like, you don't have a dog in this fight. Why are you so rude on the phone? So then I said, listen, there is a lawyer who's qualified, and he's actually very famous in New York, wants to represent this kid. All I need is a consent from Tyler Robinson to do so, and we think that you can help. To this, I got a very rude response that only SCORDIS is allowed to is allowed to find a representation for Tyler Robinson. Well, let me tell you who SCORDIS is. So SCORDIS is a guy who's running as a state prosecutor. So here's the problem with that. State prosecutor cannot be responsible to find a lawyer for a defendant. That's illegal. So
Right,
that they're choosing their own opponent.
Yeah, that's what it seems
And this
like.
is something that I've been wondering about, because it seems like an open and shut case for any defense attorney, because the government has presented such a crap case, unless his attorney is a shill.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is his attorney a shill? This is his attorney. Well, this is where he grew up, Washington County, Utah. I didn't know that. But this is his attorney, right? She's a public defender, Catherine Nestor. Right? Catherine Nestor she's very, very accomplished. So when I'm reading about Catherine, I mean, she has all sorts of 30 years experience, more than 60 jury trials, both federal and state, specializing in high profile complex cases such as capital murder, homicide, complex fraud, civil rights violations, employment discrimination. She previously served on the board of federal public defenders, both in Salt Lake City and in San Diego. For over a decade, Nestor received a national recognition, including being named Mississippi Trial Lawyer of the Year and receiving Federal Bar Distinguished Service Award. Now, she's also a member of the prestigious legal organizations like the American College of Trial Lawyers and the American Board of Criminal Lawyers. Now, here's the thing. When you hear all of those amazing accolades that she has, you think, wow, he got a great lawyer, but did he? Because he seems like he just got somebody who's really in the system. Now, going back to what Elizabeth said, she was talking about how her friend said, don't, because they're going to side. The biggest firms are going to side with the state all day. And then instead, the state pretty much supplies his defender. And this woman, public defenders are terrible in general, just terrible, terrible. I've never been in any legal trouble, but all my friends that have, they're very upset if it has to come down to a public defender, because it's like, you're going to jail. That's it. This is like, it's just bad. They're never good. They're always overworked. They're underpaid. It's terrible. And they usually don't really care about representing you because they're not like in a firm. They're not partner. They're just done. You know, it's like a doctor who's too laxed. You're just like, I don't know what's going to happen right now, you know, and they don't care if you live or die kind of thing. And that's kind of what Tyler's facing right now. So she seems good, but she's also, you know, what I would call a company man. You know, that's what she's like. She's a company man. She is very much in the meshing of the federal government of Utah. She's very well known. And if something needs to happen in a case, tinfoil Speedo completely, if something needs to happen, she would be the person to pull it off. Again, she has all of these accolades, yet is a public defender. Why that you know what that reminds me of? Back when the president, now president, was being prosecuted, and someone left the DOJ and they went and took this weird position with Alvin Bragg, where it was like such a downgrade position, but then just after they do that, all of a sudden now they're in this case where they're prosecuting the now sitting president. It's the exact same type of thing. Why does she have this type of job of a public defender? She could be at a law firm easy. You show them all of this. This is everything I've done. I know case law inside and out. This is my specialty. She could be brought on. She even has the making to be a partner herself, but yet she got appointed as a public prosecutor. Now, public defender, sorry. The thing is, when you really look at it, I'm saying public defender because that's what she is. But really, she's been appointed by the people who are against Tyler. Now, I'm not saying Tyler's innocent. I'm not going down that road or anything like that. I don't know. But I am here to call out the weirdness. And that is very, very weird. Let's jump back in and hear the rest of what she has to say.
Yes. So what I know is that Scordis is running as a state prosecutor. He's running. Everyone can look it up. It's on his website. So it's not quite illegal for him to find a lawyer for Tyler, but it would be illegal if he was a state prosecutor. But what it is, though, is highly unethical. So to have Scordis looking for a lawyer for a defendant who's running for state prosecutor, this is like very unethical. So let's start from here. And of course, like then I, ran into multiple other different weird situations that will take us like far if I go into the details. But my conclusion about this case is that Tyler Robinson had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk's killing at all. And I can go into more details of how the whole thing went down and why is it that the security that's supposed to be trained so well, if something happens to your, protectee like Charlie, like the first thing you're going to do when you have a neck wound is cover the wound and put the pressure on the wound. Even like my young relatives who are like 15-year-old, they know it. So how is this that the security unit, a security detail of Charlie didn't know that? And if they did know that, then you can play the whole clip. Why is that? And none of them are doing this, because when they carried Charlie to the car, none of them had any blood on their hands. So if they actually tried to cover the wound properly and tried to save Charlie in one way or another, it would be there, don't you think?
Yeah, well, they're too busy. Well, one of them was too busy with his meta glasses filming the situation.
Right.
So
Right.
He's talking about Dan Flood. Dan Flood actually pressed the camera thing. Now, he could have been stopping his camera with those meta glasses, or he could have been starting it up. You can't really tell. I would think he's stopping it. That would make the most sense to me, especially if, per se, there is a situation where you're seeing multiple guards, security guards, and none of them are getting any blood on their hands. Because if you had that footage, and then the FBI has that footage, they might just go, what the hell's going on here, right? Or if it just got online somehow, people would be like, what on earth? And then those guys would hopefully get locked up. I mean, honestly. But aside from that, just all the weirdness with the prosecution. It seems like again, I've said this before, JFK level weirdness when it comes to Charlie and the situation, but then also to Tyler. Everything's very shadowy. Right? She approaches with a lawyer. Just a Hail Mary move that nobody would do. You never expect that. That didn't happen for Luigi. You don't see that where somebody who's a reporter is just like, hey, I can get you a lawyer. I know a guy. He's great. That doesn't happen. But when it does, all of a sudden, you can't get a hold of the parents. Nobody actually wants you to actually get him this lawyer. And it seems like it's because that lawyer's from the outside. That lawyer's some New York guy who's like, oh, I'm gonna get this guy off, or I'm gonna make sure this guy doesn't die. You know, like let me at this. I know what to do here. They don't want someone like that. They want someone who's gonna go along with what they have going on. But the question is, why? Why does Utah just hate Tyler? Is that what it is? Well, that wouldn't make any sense. He hasn't really done anything. You know, and I don't mean like, towards the incident, but, just before everything, he was just a regular guy. He's just a kid, young man, whatever. So why would they want him like this? Because it seems like now they want him, and they're not letting another lawyer get through. They're making sure their own pit bull of sorts is what gets through and is representing him. It seems like, yeah, again, very shadowy and like he's just getting sold down the river kind of thing. Very, very weird stuff. And again, very odd. I mean, this Elizabeth lady is just very, very odd. I mean, again, go look her up. Elizabeth Lane. Go look her up. It's when you look at what she does, don't look on X. Look on Instagram and YouTube. And you'll be like, oh, who is this person? And then she's on Redacted. And then she's played on Candace's show. Say, who are you? Who are you? I don't know, man. That's me. Listen, tinfoil Speedo in all day. I'm waiting, and I can see it already formulating. And I talked about this like a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I was like, even 3 years ago. Anniversary of the podcast was actually just a few days ago on October 10th. So yeah, 3 years ago, pretty much I talked about this, where I said, there will be people, the mainstream media, because I was parsing out the mainstream media a whole lot. I was dissecting what they were saying and bringing people the truth through there and fact checking the mainstream media kind of thing. And I was like, they are so bought and paid for that. And it's so obvious now that whoever is pulling those strings is going to move on to YouTubers and Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers. And they're going to start paying those people to do exactly what the mainstream media is doing. And I'm always on the lookout for it. I think there's a few. I mean, I think some of them you can see they're raising their head. There's a few out there already that I think are just basically Anderson Cooper with a different hat on. Maybe a different colored skin. That's what I think, honestly. But again, to this whole weirdness of the prosecution. It seems like They really don't want any outside influence whatsoever at all. Who could be prompting that to happen? It could be the president being like, "Hey, that's my friend. My son was just with this guy. My son's always with this guy." You know, Charlie was like not Eric Trump, Don Jr.'s like bagman at one point. You know that? When he was real young? Like he's been around the Trumps for a long, long time. So maybe he looked at it like, hey, make sure that this happens. I don't have time for this. This guy did it. I want this guy to get the highest punishment possible. That could be a thing. You know, if it's not Trump, if it's not the president himself, it could easily be one of his kids, right? I don't know. You know, one of the kids that loved Charlie. Who could it be? Who's reaching down and making sure that no outside influence gets it? And is it something that's sincere, or is it something that's a little more sinister? Is there something going on? Now, Candace is talking about this being a military hit. Now, when she says that, you know, you say military hit. I think she's saying that because the wording just feels weird. It's kind of just, you know, agency type of things, you know, people in the background, the shadowy figures of the world. That's what I think it was. I don't think it was like just straight up military. Maybe somebody with that type of experience, but I don't know. It all seems so weird. Again, JFK level. We have a potential patsy. We have possibly 2 shooters. We have a magic bullet. We have a man who could have been president. We have a whole nation that is just in an uproar about the whole thing. It is just JFK level weirdness to a T. But you guys let me know what you think about this whole attorney thing, because I think that's more telling than people are willing to say. I think that's very telling. That somebody comes and says, I'll represent him. I'm good at this. And they go, no, get out of here. How dare you? How dare you? Get out of here. We'll handle it as a state. And then they call in their own person. Man, that kid's going down the river. I think either he gets off, and it looks crazy if he gets off. Terrible if he gets off, which he won't. He can't. With what the FBI has looked into, what they've said already, they can't afford for this guy to get off. But if he does, that's crazy. And if not, he gets the highest punishment. I don't see it being life without parole. I don't see that happening. Not for someone like this. Anyways, guys, just wanted to bring that to you. I'm out of here.